Former prisoners of Reddit, what was the most effed up thing about the prison/jail in general you have witnessed? My first night in the prison I had to sleep head to toe with another guy on the top bunk because there was only 8 beds and I was the 9th guy in the cell. But your genitals are still lined up. Seinfeld reference. There's no way to lock it in. I could demonstrate, but I need a volunteer. No. I'm not falling for that again. Group shower beatings. I got effed right up once. Lots of guys like to gang up on one guy. Then the herd changes people every couple weeks so someone else gets beat up if they don't fit. Do they just pick people at random? Not random. Anyone who doesn't fit in or who says something that makes someone paranoid. It's sad really, they were more scared of me for thinking I was an informant than I was of them. Laughing out loud. What is the logic of beating up the informant? Wouldn't they just inform that they got beat up and get more charges? Yes. The thing is, a lot of them are in and out for life, and being inside keeps you alive when it's -30 all winter. They don't care if they get more time. They only care about the brotherhood. Not me, but one of my best friends saw a guy get jumped and they poured boiling sugar water on his face. I've seen this as well. You've never heard a man in pain until you've seen the creativity of those with only time to think. Out of curiosity, any reason it was sugar water? Does that have an effect you wouldn't get with just regular old boiling water? It sticks and ruins your skin. It's basically the same as an acid attack with the scarring. And much higher heat capacity than just water. I'm imagining, prisoner 1, let's pour boiling water in his face, prisoner 2, no. Let's use sugar water since it has higher heat capacity. All it takes is one prisoner with a high IQ or who reads a lot of books to come up with it, and the rest is word of mouth. The conversation was probably more like, let's use sugar water. Why? I heard it's worse. Damn, why you got to make me laugh like that, poor dude. Sticky. And it stores more energy, so much more severe burns. Yep, my mom has a huge scar on her hand and thigh from when she was a chef and spilled caramel on her hand. She spilled it and immediately knew she effed up, but it didn't hurt, so she assumed it had cooled enough and continued what she was doing. Then she felt the pain and wound up with third-degree burns. They had to take skin from her thigh, hence the scar on her thigh too, to graft to her hand. Ouch, that poor woman, those burns can get nasty. I work in plastics and have on occasion gotten molten plastic on my arm or hand, similar properties to caramel. If you ever get boiling caramel or grease on you, the best thing to do is to immediately put ice or spray it with something cool. I use mold release at work as it's readily available. If you try and wipe it off, you just spread the range of the burn. This is not exactly true. The burn is more severe because the sugar in the water raises the boiling temperature. Regular water cannot go above 100 degrees Celsius because it becomes vapor at a higher temperature, but this threshold is higher for sugar, which has a greater molar mass, and thusly a higher boiling point. Yeah, this is the right answer, boiling point elevation. It's the flip side of putting salt on your driveway to melt the snow, freezing point depression. Yeah, think molten lava or superglue. I saw a news article about a man in prison in Dublin for killing a young girl. Other prisoners got him and poured boiling sugar water down his throat. Oh, prison napalm. They do the same thing with baby oil and water. Creative bastards. Water boils at 212 F. Sugar water can get 300 F or more depending on the concentration. As the water boils out, the temp goes up. My kitchen manager I have worked with for 8 years was locked up for 13 years. He said the worst thing he saw was when an inmate had beef with another, so he decided to heat up a bunch baby oil in the microwave for a very long time and then threw it on him while he was eating lunch. He said the screams were unimaginable. They took away the microwave due to the incident, and then the oil dumper got jumped by several inmates mad about not having a microwave. He said he never saw him again after that. They probably just sent him to a farm upstate to live happily ever after. Tell my cat hi. My mom sent him there 40 years ago, I'm sure he's still there. Former care of here. Had a guy on suicide watch eat a golf pencil, then proceeded to eat his colostomy bag. Had to go in and wrestle with him covered in feces while he was choking on the colostomy bag clip. Good times. We had a girl use a pencil to constantly poke at her prolapsed butthole, sharpened. She went to the hospital lots. Pencils have different uses in jail. I don't know what the F kind of competition this is. But I don't think anyone is winning. The point is to get out of jail for surgery, get some drugs, get a good meal and recover in a nice comfy hospital bed. My wife's a nurse and literally was dealing with a prisoner who repeatedly shoves foreign objects in his pee hole earlier this evening. He's done it at least a half a dozen times. When the treatment of prisoners is so bad that without proper context you just think they're insane, when self-harm becomes the logical thing to do, that's when you know human rights were never a thing for society, just something to keep the illusion up for slightly longer so that the deluded people can keep functioning for a bit longer before they break. Whatever she's doing, she's sure doing it. You have mine beat, but I worked at a juvenile facility and had a young man stick 2 golf pencils up his pee hole. He thought you had to get up on the pee hole to have an orgasm. This is truly the most horrible thing I've ever heard of. Reads next comment. Yeah, you might want to take that back. Seen something similar. Dude was on suicide watch in padded cell with drain and floor, wearing his Velcro suit, crap everywhere and then pissed on his crap, made it a nice crap piss smoothie and started making crap angels out of it. Then proceeded to finger paint with it and then eat it. It took me 5 tries to read all that. Enters thread. Reads top comment. Leaves thread. That dude needed to be somewhere other than prison. Don't care what crime he committed. If you're willing to eat your own colostomy bag, you need to be in a mental health institution. We put our police and COs in no-win situations like this, and I think that's a big part of the problems we're witnessing these days. The pay is also really bad. Depends on where you live. For example, my dad has been a CO for like 25 years now. He's not making a fortune, but it's one of the best wages you can get around here short of being a successful business or property owner or some such. He also works for the state, so the benefits are much better than some other places. I'd imagine if you lived in a much more urban area with a lot of tech or something it definitely wouldn't be great though. That being said, you couldn't pay me twice that to deal with the stuff he's had to deal with over the years, especially when he was working in the housing unit holding all the child molesters. That's awful. Feel bad for you for sure, but also that sucks that someone was in such a position in life that that's what they tried to kill themselves with. I don't know, sometimes you do anything to get out, I guess. It was a brand new jail, but it was built on a swamp. A year into operation the building started to settle and the sliding doors didn't shut. So we weren't really locked into our pod. And our county spent about $10 million to build it. Listen, lad. I built this prison up from nothing. When I started here, all there was swamp. Other countries said I was daft to build a prison on a swamp, but I built it all the same, just to show 'em. It sank into the swamp. So, I built a second one. That sank into the swamp. So, I built a third one. That burned down, fell over, then sank into the swamp. But the fourth one stayed up. And that's what you're going to get, lad, the strongest prison in these islands. Your death shall not be in vain. Actually, I think I might pull through, sir. Man, I was totally expecting a Monty Python reference there. Huge tracts of land. But for there, I'd rather. Tawdry sentimental music cue. No, there'll be no singing while I'm here. Guard hiccups, oh drink a glass of water. But the fourth one stayed up. I was thinking the same thing. I gave you a reward thingy, even though it doesn't make any sense, but it's the only award I had to give. Have a good day. The jail is sinking because when they built it they didn't take into account the weight of the prisoners, my tour guide said. When my uncle came up for parole in prison in Australia in the 80s, the guards deliberately shut him in the exercise yard with a pedophile. The pedo posed no threat to my uncle, but the rest of the prison was watching. If my uncle bashed the pedo, his parole would be delayed. If he didn't bash the pedo, the rest of the blokes in the prison would have beaten my uncle severely. He beat up the pedophile and stayed a few more months. Effing dog act by the guards. That's so effed up. He said it was pretty common, anyone who'd had any kind of dispute with the guards would get the old extended stay. I don't know about the exact rules in Australia, but extending sentences is extremely common in the USA due to our reliance on private for-profit prisons. Those prisons are built by private companies who put in a clause to keep those jails at a certain capacity, like 70%, or higher. And when states don't make those capacity requirements, they have to pay extra fines and fees. In states with less money, they simply can't afford to pay those fines, so they keep extending people's prison sentences. For-profit prisons should be taken out of operation. I agree with your last sentence 100%. They shouldn't be allowed, just like for-profit ambulances and air ambulances. My brother was in on remand many years ago and was to be released on the day before everything shuts down over the Christmas break. He gets his best thongs on, gets transported to court, and waits. And waits. And waits. Guards thought it'd be funny to lose his paperwork and extend his stay over the 6-week break. This is after 9 of the 13 charges against him, that he's confessed to, were dropped because they hadn't actually happened. Nothing to do with all the bruising that appeared right after he was locked up. The trick behind that one was a big, well, $50, anonymous top-up of his prison account. He says anything, and the copper who made the donation can waive the receipt. Around saying he'd paid for information. Not all coppers are bastards, but a lot of them are absolute bastards. Mate, that's effed. So vindictive. When he was young, we're talking in his teens, he made the mistake of not kowtowing to the local constabulary. He was no angel, not by a long shot, but all petty stuff. If you do that, they will never let you go. He'd be out with friends just hanging out and a copper would bail him up, often violently, just to shake him down. When you hear someone was a known person or known to police, that's what they mean. He tried to go straight and clean up his act countless times over the years, but the cops never let up and he got to wondering why he even bothered. Again, not all coppers are bastards, but until you've seen this side of them you won't always spot the rotten ones. This happened to me. I was the bad kid in a small town and I wasn't sufficiently scared of the cops when I was a little kid. I was too bold for them. I did end up leaving in my teens to live with another family member, but any time I went back it was the same. It's been years and I actually normally still don't bother driving in the area. Some of the cops are okay. There are some that I'll stop and talk to if I see them in a bar, but there are ones that I'm really not interested in running into. A 6-week break in the justice system for Christmas. WTF? He was not getting parole either way. Seems pretty effed up that the other prisoners wouldn't understand he is about to get out and let that go. I get it, pedophiles are effing monsters, but let the dude get out and someone else deal with the pedo. There'd have been some that would have accepted that, but not the hardliners. 2 dudes holding hands while taking craps. Edit, laughing out loud. Of course, this is what gets me Reddit awards. Wholesome. Wholesome. A guy cut the tendons on the back of the knees on the person in the bunk below me. At night. And I didn't realize he'd been lying under the bunk. Head count at lights out was, like the rest of the place, corrupt. Now knee tendons hurt. Thanks. That's some gnarly crap. Segregation. I went in Gen Pop ignorant and just tried to grab a bunk when a white guy with some overtly racist tattoos stopped me and warned me away from the bunk area. It was because I'm white and the area was black. It was just shocking. I was in a random kind of small jail one time. It didn't really have any race stuff going on. Then this old white supremacist con turned up. I was in the rec room playing basketball with some black guys and the con was walking around in circles around the outside. And then he walked behind me and he said kind of quietly, "Are you a N-word?" One of the black guys heard him. So that got kind of tense. We got kicked out back to the pod. The con was looking at me, so I went and sat down at a table with the same black guys, and man, the stare from the con, you would have thought I'd murdered his puppy. He ended up getting moved before we had to fight about this stupid effing crap, so that was nice. This is where you end up from years of prison, kids. I've known COs who used to attempt to provoke inmates into fighting so that the CO would have an excuse to go effing nuts on them. Way too many COs have something psychologically wrong with them. I've been standing in a cell before with a cellie who was on murder charges and we were watching a CO outside. The murder guy was like, "That dude is effed up." And I was like, "You're right, murder guy, that dude is effed up." One of my good friends was a CO and at one point told me, "If you don't watch yourself, you could very easily become a criminal being a CO." Always found that extremely interesting. I was told by an old boss that was a CO in past life. The only difference between the inmates and the guards is who got caught. I was in the Marine Reserves where I worked with several COs, including a few that were among the most disturbingly unethical people I've ever known. We also had a lot of cops, some of whom were awesome and some total hotheads, but only the COs seemed to think their job was some kind of violent joke. I don't know whether this outlook was just a coping mechanism, but it was effed. Notably, one of them really wanted to be a cop but kept failing the exam by screwing up the exam questions about police ethics. Yeah, cops have way higher hiring standards than COs. I spent years getting arrested and I do have concerns about police departments, and certain cops and how they are allowed to remain in their jobs and how crap gets covered up by departments. But overall, in my experience, the group of good cops is much larger than the group of good C.O. A great CO really stands out. My dad is a CO and has had over 20 years in it. It has totally effed him up. The dynamic of guard to prisoner is bad enough, but in his jail especially, the management is straight up toxic. They belittle the COs and wear them down so much that they end up lashing out on the prisoners to make themselves feel like they're a step up from them. I'm not defending the behavior in the least. I can just see what the environment has done to him. The treatment of prisoners in the US is the primary problem. In my honest opinion, there's a culture of punishment rather than rehabilitation, and it's spread to everyone involved. And it helps no one. Not the prisoners or the COs or even the crime rate. My dad is finally, intermittently, getting counseling for all this, but I've watched it tear him down my whole life. And it breaks my heart. As does all the horror stories I've heard from prisoners. My father-in-law was a CO, initially at Attica, but then later a minimum security prison. He was completely warped by it, and it shattered his relationships with his wife and daughter. He died in his 60s, a couple of years into retirement, from a treatable cancer that he was too stubborn to have treated until it was too late. I used to work with a guy who had just been fired from the local jail. Dude had huge issues, especially with women. You'd think they'd had a background check on him before leaving him alone with a vulnerable population. They might have wondered about the 2 stalking charges, or my favorite, the indecent exposure charge that stemmed from him flashing his ex's mother. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube and share them with your friends. We welcome your comments below. Press to start another of our videos.